All right, folks, so you just completed drawing 1A and you've uploaded it to Brightspace, and you're ready to start assignment 1B. You're going to start off by making a copy of this by doing a save as. So you can click on save as or type save as and bring up this dialog box. And you want this to be renamed as assignment 1B with your initials, and save it in the same work in progress location. Once you've done that, you now have a second version basically of that drawing file, but it's been renamed, and all the layers that you originally created are in there. So I'm going to erase what we have here for line work, and we're going to switch to the 0 layer, and we're going to insert a drawing file that you're going to want to download from the learning management section of the the PDF's instructions, basically within module 1. So that downloaded file is called a DWG file. Right here is DWG1 handle drawing, and click on that, and then click on download, and place that drawing either in your virtual desktop under support files within your folder you created in the file management section, or you're going to put that on your home computer in the support files. But either way, it has to be downloaded before you can use it, and I already have it, as you can see. So once you have done that, you want to type in I for insert and hit enter, because you see insert showed up. And then you're going to want to go and browse for that file. So I'm going to browse for the handle drawing within my support files. You have to know where it is, and hit open. And then to insert the drawing, you're going to click on it, because it's going to show up here in this blocks dialog box. After you've inserted it, click on it, and it's going to give you an option to insert it. I'm going to insert it at 0, 0. It's going to come in as a block. So when you select it, it comes in as one entity, which is called a block. And one of the ways we can explode or reduce this down to its original entities is to use a command called explode. Now with the explode command, E is not the shortcut. I have to actually type in X for explode and hit enter to start that command. And then I can select the object I want to explode and hit enter, and it explodes this down to the individual entities, okay? And one of the problems is this is a metric drawing, so it came in and it kind of did some funky thing to this dimension. You can go ahead and delete that dimension, and using that, make that the first thing you fix and update and put on the correct layer. Go to the dimension layer and use the command you learned in the last lesson, DLI, and create a dimension going from the end of the object to the center of the handle. And that will create a new dimension line you can then place. And it will update with the new imperial units instead, with the converted 70 millimeters from the original drawing that we inserted, but we've corrected that one thing and put it on the correct layer. So the purpose of this lesson is to learn how to move things from one layer to another, and basically have control of your layer management, and also to get a sense of what all of those different line types mean and how they behave in a drawing. So we're going to use another one of your references, which is the line alphabet drawing, and it's the handle drawing with all of the lines on the correct layers and all of the lines called out here on the outside. So you have exactly the same drawing, exactly the same callouts, but none of them are labeled yet. You're going to label them by referencing that drawing and going back and forth. So you're going to be using the text editor. So let's start with this, for instance. Now that section of the drawing, that is the chain line. So I want to put that on the chain layer. And then I want to double click on this leader. And when I do that, it should let me edit it. Just use the delete button to delete the text that was in there. And I'm going to type in chain. This leader itself isn't on the correct layer. It's on the 0 layer still. Nothing should be left on the 0 layer. All of these leaders, in fact, and I'm using my select box to select all of this, the leaders and the callouts, so that they all get selected and I can move them all at once to the correct layer. And I'm going to let you decide. They can be moved to either the text layer or the dimension layer. Either one is acceptable. So let's move those to the dimension layer. And text. So there's all our text. We can select all of that. All of our text would move to the text layer. If we go reference that drawing, that's all phantom lines here. These are all object lines. So we have to select all that line work and put it on the appropriate layer. And you're going to have to go back and forth a little bit and figure out where, what should be on what layer and where it is and so on. But that's all right. Take your time and get familiar with these and understand what those lines mean in the drawing by looking at what they're called out as and looking at that lesson on line types and line weights within your lecture material. So this should be all on the visible layer. When you're done, you should be able to go to the 0 layer and then use your layer manager to isolate that 0 layer. You can isolate that 0 layer by selecting, right-clicking and choosing, right-clicking anywhere actually on one of the layer names and hit select all. And then that's freeze the layers by clicking on one of the suns and turning them into a snowflake. Now this is warning you that the 0 layer, which is current because we got the green checkbox next to it, will not freeze. So when I hit off the layer manager, it shows me what's left that needs to be moved to the correct layer. And by doing this too, it might become easier for you to select the objects and see what objects need to be moved to what layer. These lines that I'm selecting here are all representing visible lines that I can see of that view. So those should go to the visible layer. And as you do that, it will warn you, hey, you're putting things on a frozen layer. Is that okay? Notice though how much easier it is for me to select all of these center lines now that I've frozen those layers. And I'm using that crossing window to my advantage. And I'm also, if I can't use the crossing window because I've got something in the way, I can use my cursor and click on those lines and move them to the correct layer. So those lines that I just selected there should all be on the center layer. And this is warning you, you just put a bunch of stuff on the frozen layer, and that's okay. All of these lines here, which I can use to cross over with my selection crossbox, are going on the phantom layer. Both these arrows and these arrows can be put on the cutting plane line layer. These are all considered short break lines, but short break lines have the same exact characteristics as visible lines. So we can actually put them on the visible layer. These lines on the outside are all object lines. And I believe these lines are supposed to be object lines. And the ends of the pin that we have here that we can actually see that are visible. See if there are any line segments down here. Yep, there are a couple. Those are visible lines. So we want to put those on the visible layer. This is another center line, as is this and this. These are all center lines, and so is this So we can put those on the center layer. And then I believe everything that we have left here are hidden lines. And then we have what's left here is that's a visible line that goes around the section lining that we have there. That's visible. And then this hatch, which is called a hatch, opens up a hatch editor dialog box or ribbon. And nowhere do you see a place where we can change the layer. So what do? Well, go to the tab that you do have the ability to change the layer. Notice Hatch Editor is still available and the item is still selected. So move it to the correct layer from there, and then you can hit Escape. So notice we have nothing showing anymore. Nothing's left on that 0 layer. And I can go back into my layer control, and all the layers are still selected. So all I have to do is click on one of those snowflakes and it's going to thaw all my layers. And then I go back, and now that's what the drawing should look like. So when you're done with this drawing, nothing should be left on the 0 layer. All of the items that you see in the drawing should be on their appropriate layers based off of this drawing. So you're going to have to maybe study it and go back and forth. And then every single one of these leaders should have the correct name of the line that it's pointing to. Once you've completed that, you can save the file and you can upload it into the second part of this week's lesson.